America and the banana republic that we don't want it to become, UFOs, and teachers yelling at students who are vaccinated for not wearing masks. Upside down world. Life in the upside down lane. I know you're all feeling that way because I feel that way. I feel that way every day now. There isn't a day I don't come on the podcast and I don't say, guys, do you feel like our world is turned upside down? Like the crazies are in charge and your common sense has just decided to get up, pack its bags, and walk away from planet Earth? Like, I want to chase common sense down. I want to find common sense. I believe common sense is actually a thing, right? It's like, where did it go? Where did it go? I don't even know where to start. I mean, we're going to talk about all of that on this show and so much more. So much more. I do have Nick Pope on with us today, and you all know who he is. Those of you interested in aerial phenomena, or in other words, UFOs, the disclosure from the Pentagon, as well as others, that we cannot explain, and it is not our technology, what we are seeing up in the skies. I mean, we're talking about G-forces that no human being should be able to survive. Capabilities of these vehicles, so-called vehicles, they were called Tic Tacs because of the way they look. And I don't know if you all saw the 60 Minutes special with our good friend Luis Elizondo, Chris Mellon, and others that have come forward to basically disclose that there is something in our skies that we cannot explain. And God help us on both counts, I think. Whether this is technology from another universe or another solar system, or whether this is technology that has been developed by our enemies, I mean, we have to be very, very concerned. This is a real national security issue. I am going to be talking to Nick Pope on that. I'm also going to talk glass half full because we live in extraordinary times, right? Where we are witness to possibly the biggest answer that all humanity has always asked. Are we alone in the universe? Are we the only intelligent life? Although I'm going to say, are we intelligent? I don't know. You see what's happening on planet Earth right now. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that if anyone's visiting this planet, that they have common sense, whatever they are, and that they can really help Nancy Pelosi out because she is just bananas. Or maybe take her to their planet. No, we don't want to do that to them. Don't take her to your planet. We'll deal with her here. We're going to find a way to deal with her here on the Sara Carter Show. Okay, so if you need to get all my links, go to saracarter.com. That's saracarter.com. While you're on my website, sign up for our email list. We'll keep you, at the forefront of all the breaking stories, all the breaking news. Remember, you can get all of that and more at saracarter.com. Sign up for our email list so you do not get shadow banned. We do not want any shadow banning anymore because we're already being shadow banned, by the way, by Twitter, Facebook, everybody else. So it's the only way I can get my stories to you. I'm telling you, we know it. Okay, before I go any further, I want to tell you guys about AMAC. I know I talk about it quite often. It's the Association of Mature American Citizens. They sponsor this great show to help us get the truth to you. AMAC welcomes everyone who cares about the future of our great republic. So I want you to join and I want you to stand up to the progressive agenda. If you're with AARP, you're just helping the progressive agenda. There is strength in numbers, and together we can bring one clear, resounding voice to Washington, D.C., and that is through AMAC. By joining AMAC, you are taking the first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every benefit that AARP offers, but without that crazy liberal agenda, the one that Nancy Pelosi is espousing and the Biden administration right now that is driving us all batty. I stand with AMAC. I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter, CARTER. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join at amac.us/Carter today. I don't know where to start. So I'm going to start with, I think, one of the most important stories that I have seen out there right now that is not getting the attention it deserves. okay? And this is about the Pentagon's warrantless spying on Americans. I want you to think about this. The Pentagon's warrantless spying on Americans. Did I not spend 4 years covering this very topic, right? When we discovered that the FBI under James Comey and Andrew, I wanted to say Andrew Weissman, which it was Andrew Weissman over at the DOJ, but it was definitely James Comey's FBI that was spying on us, on Americans, on Carter Page. Those revelations were very clear, and that they broke all kinds of rules to do it. It was Banana Republic. That's what I talk about. Banana Republic, guys. Andy McCabe was his deputy director. Andy McCabe was let go. James Comey was fired. A ton of people underneath them were fired, were removed from the FBI, but nobody ever paid the price for trampling the Constitution and basically trampling American rights, our civil rights, our civil liberties. Right now, the Department of Defense is conducting, according to Senator Ron Wyden, according to a letter he has sent to the DOD, that he knows that the Department of Defense has been conducting warrantless surveillance of Americans using commercial data. He said back in 2020, a report indicated that the U.S. military had been purchasing location data sourced from popular apps. So those are our apps on our cell phone, right? To track the movements of people around the globe. So I guess they were following me everywhere because I was, my app, I had all the apps going on my phone. That information then was bought from commercial data brokers and tracking firms that Apple and Google later banned. Think about that. After that report, Senator Wyden's office sent a letter to the Pentagon inquiring about that data purchasing practice of U.S. military and intelligence agencies. Because remember, this isn't just about the Pentagon. This is about the Pentagon and, the other 16 intelligence agencies that operate in the United States. And whether or not there are senior officials within those agencies that are crossing the line to collect private data. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, so what? Who cares, right? I don't do anything wrong. I'm not a terrorist. That doesn't matter, folks. What you have to imagine here is that you'll always have a government that will never operate like a banana republic, that will never weaponize any of their agencies, that will always uphold the truest intent of the law. And I think we know the answer to that. That does not exist. So now imagine a government that is collecting data on judges, on congressional members, on reporters, on doctors, on lawyers, on priests, on ministers. Oh, by the way, you think I'm over-exaggerating this? They actually expanded the spying capabilities under the Obama administration to include journalists, lawyers, priests, doctors. Oh, you thought HIPAA counted, right? You thought wrong. You thought there was attorney-client privilege? Well, no, you thought wrong. This is the reason why the FISA court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the FISC, or the FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act application, the one that people have to actually fill out to get approval from the FISC to spy on someone, why that was such a big deal to the FISC court, which is the reason why Rosemary Conyer, who used to be with the FISA court, basically chided the Obama administration at the end of Obama's term, the very last months of that administration. The FISC court was all over them about violating our Fourth Amendment, saying, this is crazy. You've been doing this? Well, guess what? It hasn't stopped. And that's according to Motherboard. And Senator Wyden's questions, a lot of those were redacted because they contained classified information. So we don't even know what the senator was asking. But what I said right before, it means something. Imagine someone collecting information about someone else's private life. Not to throw them in prison if they find them doing something wrong, like, oh, I found out that so and so's a pedophile. I better report that. No, that's not what they're doing it for. They're collecting information because information is the most powerful weapon on planet Earth. The most powerful weapon on planet Earth. With information, you can do anything. With information, you can literally hold people hostage. And especially if the people you are holding hostage or forcing to do things your way have committed crimes or don't want to be found out. It's called blackmail. Every intelligence agency uses it. Why do you think you hear things like honeypots, right? Like people try to trap people into, crossing the line, whether that be with another person sexually, whether you find out someone's lying about who they are, whether someone's hiding something from their family. Now imagine having access to everything, right? And that's what this is about. I want you to listen, though, to this clip that we have. I've played this before, and there's a reason why I do this. A long time ago, way back in the 70s and 60s and 50s, that long ago, the Democrats would fight for basically to protect those freedoms. There were libertarians out there. There were people that were, fighting to protect our common liberties, right? Our civil liberties. And we had people out there that were willing to take that fight all the way to the DOD. I want you to hear a clip from Senator Frank Church. These are the Church hearings where they were putting the Department of Defense and the NSA on check, way back when. Listen to this.
We have a particular obligation to examine the NSA in light of its tremendous potential for abuse. It has the capacity to monitor the private conversations of American citizens without the use of a bug or a tap. The interception of international communication signals sent through the air is the job of NSA, and thanks to modern technological developments, it does its job very well. The danger lies in the ability of the NSA to turn its awesome technology against domestic communication.
That was Senator Frank Church, then a Democrat of Idaho, in 1975. 1975, at a hearing, at the Church hearings. You guys, if in 1975, the NSA was capable of spying on Americans and listening in on Americans with the technology that they had then, imagine what we have now. Just imagine it. You saw what happened to President Donald Trump. You see what's happening right now. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't question what happened during the presidency of President Donald Trump. Both Republican establishment and Democrats targeted a duly elected president of these United States, trashed his name throughout the world, did everything they could to target his family, and they are still doing so right now. They are still doing it right now. That's why the New York AG's office is going after him. That's why when President Trump said, "I'm being tapped," he was being tapped. They were listening, and it didn't matter what words he used. Only those Democrats and those people that were spying on him, they wanted to throw you all off. They wanted to basically get you to think of him as like this kind of quack, right? Who shouldn't be in office. You want to see what's happening now? Look at what's happening now. Israel and Gaza are on fire. The Middle East is on fire. Our economy is a mess. Gas prices are through the roof. They're going through the roof, right? President Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Yet for some reason, it's okay for Russians to have a pipeline, for Russians to do everything. Remember, it was supposed to be President Trump, right? Didn't John Brennan try to accuse him of being, a Manchurian candidate? Right? Who is tougher on Russia? What do you think the Russians want? They want to be the number one in energy throughout the world. They need the money. They're broke without it. They like to be in control. the Republicans were holding them accountable. They were under Trump, and Trump more so. I'm talking about those Republicans that supported Trump at the time. And now what do we see? A mess, a global mess, a global mess. And the New York AG's office, Banana Republic, I'm going right back to it, is being geared up and has been geared up to target President Trump because God help the Trump family. These people do not want him to run again. They don't want him to have any influence on any candidates in the future, i.e., Governor Ron DeSantis, right? Senator Tim Scott, and others that would be phenomenal possible candidates. They want to destroy President Trump. Let me just read you a little bit about this. The New York Attorney General's office said Tuesday that it is pursuing a criminal investigation into the Trump Organization, a criminal investigation, in addition to the ongoing civil probe. And Fabian Levy came out, a spokesperson for the office. We have informed the Trump Organization that our investigation into the organization is no longer purely civil in nature. We are now actively investigating the Trump Organization in a criminal capacity, along with the Manhattan DA. We have no additional comment at this time. Bullshit. They threw that out there because they want to destroy this family. That is their goal. It's what banana republics do. And the reason I brought up Senator Frank Church, the reason I bring up the spying, the reason I bring up all of this, because it all plays hand in hand. None of those criminals from the last organization were ever brought on charges, neither by, and I look, President Trump said it himself. He trusted Attorney General William Barr for some time. He trusted John Durham. All those people got fired. They all did the worst of the worst. We would all go to jail if we did anything like the people at the FBI did, or at the DOJ, or worked with foreign spies, or placed false stories inside international newspapers to target a president of these United States, which I believe is seditious and treasonous. And guess what? Nothing happened to them. Nothing. Because the establishment protected its own. It protected the bureaucracy. And now they're weaponizing the system, weaponizing the DA's office, weaponizing our intelligence agencies, weaponizing our law enforcement agency. Our officials. Think about what is going on here. Think about it. Who are we to criticize anybody else? This is stuff that happens overseas. I never thought it would happen here. Where can you go? What can you do? You can indict a ham sandwich. You literally can indict a ham sandwich. There's a reason for that. Saying that. It's like you don't need much. All they have to do is go after you. Imagine if someone was going through every bit of documentation you've had in your entire life, your computer, your taxes, everybody that you talk to, everybody that you know. Did you fill that out accurately? I want to find something in those papers that's going to criminalize this person. And that's what they do. And that's what they did. They won't do it to themselves. You won't see a big investigation into General Michael Hayden. You won't see a big investigation into Nancy Pelosi and her husband and all their investments. You won't see a big investigation into anybody, only the people they want to target. So for all of you out there, as I wrapped up these thoughts, think about it. This isn't about whether or not you think you ever did anything wrong. This is about civil liberties. There is a reason why our founding fathers put together a constitution that is so brilliant. And by the way, a Fourth Amendment that stops the government from unreasonable search and seizure. There is a reason why we have supposed to have these balance of powers. It's so that our government doesn't become so overbearing and we don't turn into something we don't recognize anymore. And far worse right now, we are an embarrassment. This behavior in our government is unacceptable. And it's wrong. And it's what it is. But until we find people brave enough inside the Department of Justice, brave enough inside the Department of Defense, and brave enough inside our national security apparatus to put a stop to it by speaking out, I'm afraid we're heading down a very dangerous and wrong path. But I also believe we live in extraordinary times. And I know for many of you out there, like me, I'm very interested in space. I'm interested in the exploration of space, very interested in what Elon Musk has planned to take all of us to the moon. I believe that the human race itself, mankind, is meant to do that. We are meant to explore, to discover, to take risks. And part of that is accepting that maybe we don't know everything. And right now, what we're seeing and what we're hearing is extraordinary. The Pentagon has confirmed, and I've had Luis Elizondo on this show. He was former head of the Pentagon's program into unmanned aerial vehicles or aerial phenomena, where the Pentagon was actually investigating reports coming from very credible military personnel that these vehicles were actually targeting our military installations, not targeting in a bad way, but going and exposing themselves, whatever they are, to our military installations, some of them nuclear. We talked about that. That's pretty frightening. And the fact that we can't explain the type of technology that is being utilized to man these vehicles, or some of them are shaped like a Tic Tac. Imagine having no wings, they don't see any exhaust, could move between 300 to 700 Gs, right? When the human body can only resist so much. So what's going on the inside? We saw the pilots, Alex Dietrich, the female pilot, for the first time spoke out, went forward on 60 Minutes and basically said, look, guess what? I saw this with my own eyes. And I had to check myself multiple times because she was saying, I know people don't understand, but this was very real and we should have answers. And I also was told, and this is really interesting and I think important information, maybe just be a little exclusive to Sara, to the Sara Carter Show, from sources of mine, that the Inspector General at the Department of Defense is also investigating how the Pentagon has handled this situation. How they've handled the investigations and the reports into these aerial phenomena. So today we have a very special guest. I'm very excited to have him on with us today. It is Nick Pope. He ran the British government's UFO project. He is probably one of the world's leading experts on UFOs and unexplained phenomena, as well as conspiracy theories. He's incredible. Nick Pope is just a plethora of information, and he can explain things the way nobody else can. And that's why he is on the show. And he's not only an expert, but he's a good friend.
Thank you. It's great to be on the show. And yes, absolutely. The American people, I think, deserve some answers on this.
Oh, absolutely. And you and I were both on Sean Hannity on Fox News this past week after the big expose on 60 Minutes. Is it surprising to you, Nick, that it's taken so long for the U.S. government, I think as well as for the public, to actually take this seriously, to not make fun of it anymore, to start asking the serious questions?
Well, I think the media and the public are finally catching up with where those of us who've looked at this from within government have been for some time. Because certainly I have always been of the view that this is a serious defense and national security issue, whatever we're dealing with. And I'm glad that that view has now been accepted, not as a fringe view, but as a mainstream one.
Explain a little bit, Nick, your past, working in Great Britain, working at the ministry, dealing with the issues of unidentified aerial vehicles or UFOs. Explain so that our audience really understands. For those of you who haven't heard Nick speak before, this is the reason why he is such an expert and he is so sought after whenever there's issues like this that come up.
Well, I was a civilian employee of the British Ministry of Defense, so equivalent to the DoD here in the US, for 21 years. And for much of the early 90s, I was posted to a division where I had to investigate the UFO phenomenon, research the the mystery more generally, but investigate the 200 to 300 sightings we got each year, and really assess their implications for defense. And most of these things turned out to be misidentifications, but we had a small and interesting and, dare I say, troublesome proportion of these things that we couldn't explain, where these objects were chased by pilots, tracked on military radar, and captured sometimes on film. So, yeah, very much a defense and national security issue that we needed to take seriously. And it's only just beginning to lose its pop culture baggage, but about time.
Really, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, it always seemed strange to me when people would treat it as such a fringe issue, especially when there were so many credible people, speaking of military, senior military officials, pilots for British Airways. I remember that. The Rendlesham Forest incident in Great Britain, where U.S. military officials at a base that was then very classified actually saw a number of these craft. So it wasn't like it was just somebody that came off the streets or somebody that was just let out of a psychological facility or, a home for the mentally ill. I mean, these are senior officials all around the world. I met a general from Iran. I met senior officials in the military from South America. I've talked to people, physicists from France. This is a very large group of highly credible people that want answers.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we're now seeing. We're seeing these former government officials, pilots, military officers, whoever they are, coming forward, speaking out. Some of this material is being leaked, but sometimes now we're getting credible, highly placed individuals coming forward and speaking to the reality of this. I mean, we are literally seeing former presidents, former directors of national intelligence, former CIA directors going on the record here. No laughs, no jokes, just saying, yeah, there's something in our airspace and we need to know what it is.
Yeah, speaking of that, I have a clip here. It's a sound clip of President Obama on UFOs. And I think of this as a really bipartisan issue, right? I know I can get out there and I can be partisan on some of these issues, and I deal with a lot of national security issues that I'm very frustrated with. But this is one where both Democrats and Republicans seem to be on the same page now. Let's listen to President Obama on UFOs.
There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. And so, I think that people still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is.
I think that's fascinating. President Trump also has, before he left office, he put it in the COVID package for the bill that he specifically allocated in that bill that a report be released by the end of June to reveal to the American public at least some of what the Pentagon and the Department of Defense have been investigating. I've also heard that report may be delayed. What are you hearing?
Yes, I'm hearing very similar things, that we may get just a holding reply, and that's quite understandable. I mean, with 18 different parts to the U.S. intelligence community, I mean, just identifying the correct people to talk to. What active programs are there, and in what agencies, and what historical information might there be in other agencies, and are you even going to get the FaceTime with the right people in this highly classified, deeply compartmentalized world? And if they do need more time to do that, then that's fair enough. I think we would far rather a report that is properly done than something just rushed out to try and meet a fairly arbitrary deadline.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think now that the Pentagon has come forward and people that worked in the Pentagon, like Luis Elizondo, I know you know him as well as I do, have come forward and said, look, this is real. This is us being straightforward with the American people. We do not believe that what we are seeing is any technology that was developed in this country. And that's according to Chris Mellon, who was an Assistant Secretary of Defense of Intelligence and would have access to that knowledge, whether or not this was something U.S. related. Luis Elizondo worked at the time under the Pentagon for a group called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, otherwise known as ATIP. So he talked about some of the details that were declassified about what they were dealing with. He said that the technology could literally go, Nick, from 6 to 700 G-forces, like that. It could fly at 13,000 miles an hour. It can evade radar. Some of these tic-tac-shaped objects, and if you hear some noise in the background and some barking, that's my dog, Pika, who is not in the room with me. It could literally go in through the water and then back up through the water into the sky, and it didn't show any signs of having any type of propulsion or wings. Is that the kind of the similar objects that were described to you by the people that reported them to the British Defense Ministry, or what pilots were reporting there? Or are we seeing a number of different types of objects that, that could all be different?
Well, I was certainly privy to some fairly extraordinary reports at the UK Ministry of Defence, but I must say the sorts of things being reported recently in the United States do seem to take it to another level altogether. Now, I accept, I think we all do, that at any given time there will be technologies out there, secret prototype aircraft, missiles, drones, being developed, test flown, maybe operational, that won't be made public for some years. But I think the point is that people in the military intelligence community have a very good idea of, firstly, where our own technology is, of course, but even where foreign adversaries are. So when some of these people turn around and say, yeah, we're thinking about could it be China or could it be US black project technology, but really we've pretty much eliminated that, then those statements are informed, one, by people who should know. And if it's not China or other foreign adversaries, and if it's not our own technology, Air Force testing something against the Navy, then that doesn't leave you many other options.
That's right. And I think it's really concerning when you think about what some of those reports have been. Surprisingly, some of them that have been made public, right? So Rendlesham Forest, for example, they were bound by the classified nature of what they saw. These American military personnel. Rendlesham is actually a nuclear facility in Great Britain, or I think that's been declassified. It's been all over television, but the other reports that we're seeing is that these craft actually have shown up over some of our nuclear facilities in the United States. They've also been spotted at facilities in Russia, and on at least two occasions that I've been told, and that Elizondo spoke about, Luis spoke about, they actually interfered, according to reports, with our technology. That's a little bit concerning.
That's hugely concerning. If the strategic nuclear deterrent is being interacted with in any way by this phenomenon, whatever we think we're dealing with, then there can be no more impactful issue affecting the U.S. military and indeed the wider United States today. This should be at the absolute top of the list of strategic priorities. And I know that might sound counterintuitive with all the other things going on in the world right now. But if these UAP, whatever they are interacting with and affecting strategic nuclear assets, then, my goodness, it doesn't get much bigger and more important than that.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I couldn't even imagine, because really, effectively, what we're dealing with here is the unknown, right? And we're trying to explain it in our own terms, based on our own technology. But we really don't have a concept of it. I want you to listen. These are the pilots on 60 Minutes that talked about what they saw and how this affected them. And I want to get your take on it.
So as we're looking at this, her backseater says, "Hey, Skipper, do you?" And about that got out. I said, "Dude, do you see that thing down there?" And we saw this little white tic-tac looking object, and it's just kind of moving above the whitewater area.
Do you ever drop your phone and it sort of bounces off the countertop and then bounces off something else, and then it's sort of like no predictable movement, no predictable trajectory?
Yeah.
I guess. It was just
like a ping pong ball.
That's so incredible. And I mean, they go into like saying how it mirrored them and how it would mirror their flight patterns, and then how it moved within seconds to miles away. Talk a little bit about, I mean, what would it have been like in Great Britain? I mean, having a conversation about this, and as officials dealing with a situation like this. It was strange that with the Nimitz and even with the U.S. government, they said that they reported it, and it was kind of like, okay, let's not talk about it anymore. Even though they had it on radar, even though people had recorded it, even though others had seen it, even though this was a daily occurrence where they were at. Why the change now? Maybe that's the question, Nick. Why now? Is something happening that us minions, the little people maybe not the minions, but the little we don't know about? Is there something going on that our government is reacting to as that is allowing this disclosure process to take place?
Well, I think that must be the case, because there's no doubt that in the last 3 years there has been a literal 180-degree flip in United States government policy on this, which previously was deny, debunk, downplay. And now it's like the U.S. government is itself putting this out front and center. Why? Do they know something is coming, and are they trying to get ahead of the narrative, or is something else going on that's completely hidden and unknown? I don't know, but I mean, it's the $64,000 question is, why has this changed? I mean, one could say this whole phenomenon is events-led. I mean, these series of encounters between UAP and the U.S. military are ongoing, and perhaps they're escalating. Perhaps the assessment in government, and they will have, even if they say officially it's still unidentified, they will have a best current assessment. And maybe that best current assessment is a little bit scary. Maybe it says something is coming.
Right. And not only am I thinking that, I'm thinking about all the people that have been harmed by the government's denying the existence, right, of these craft. Those people that were sane, who reported, people in small towns out here in America where they've said, like, I remember hearing audio from, I don't know if it was in Oregon, but where a number of people in town, including the sheriffs, including people that ran a restaurant and others, said that they saw these craft flying around their town, and they were reporting it, and people laughed it off. They laughed at them. I think of the Roswell incident. I think of all the reports that went out, and then the supposed cover-up in Roswell that took place, and all of the people whose lives were affected by this. And now the Pentagon comes out, and the U.S. government and other governments say, look, oh no, we have alien metal I know you've seen those reports. We have alien metal. No, these really are unexplained objects with capabilities that appear to be controlled by intelligent life, that mimic us, that appear to be technology far beyond our human capabilities right now. Do you ever wonder about all those people, all the people in our history, that poor people that ended up pretty much being outed as insane or crazy for believing this?
Yes, I wonder about them, and I feel sorry for them. And indeed, this is a difficult thing to admit, but of course, when I was at the Ministry of Defense doing this job, part of my job was to be a part of this downplaying myself. And I do feel bad about it. Yeah, lives have been ruined, reputations destroyed, people have been laughed at, ridiculed, disbelieved, and only now, perhaps, can they look at the situation unfolding, classified briefings in Congress, former CIA directors and DNIs coming out with statements about this alongside presidents. And maybe now these people can feel, well, I'm vindicated. I was right after all. I spoke to military witnesses who didn't make official reports, even though they were supposed to, because they said, I didn't want to be known as Flying Saucer Fred in the officer's mess for the rest of my Air Force career.
Oh, well, that was exactly what the pilot said. And by the way, kudos to you, Nick, because I get it. It's a tough job. You were put in a position to work with the government and probably in a way protect the people from what the government couldn't even explain at the time, right? So, I mean, but kudos to you for coming out and saying, you know what, you feel bad, because I would too. I would just be like, wow, this is a tough situation, because it is probably one of the most difficult things to do is to come forward and tell people something that seems so unbelievable. So it changes the way we perceive our own humanity, to realize one of the biggest questions, I think, for all human beings is, are we alone in this world? Are we the only intelligent life out there? And I think that you coming forward and saying, that, and people coming out and talking openly about this really causes us to reassess. I guess, am I making sense? Who we are and our place in this universe?
Completely, yes. It's one of the biggest and most profound questions we can ask ourselves. And unlike some of the other big, profound, almost philosophical questions, this is a question that through science and through the very considerable resources and capabilities of the United States military, whether it's satellites, whether it's radar systems, whether it's forward-looking infrared cameras, whatever it is, but through those formidable resources and capabilities of the United States, it's a philosophical, profound question that we may be able to answer. And why wouldn't we want to go after that answer aggressively and get it?
Right. I mean, what do you think, Nick? I've always wondered, because for everyone out there, Nick is so much fun. By the way, Nick, you're so much fun. We saw each other just briefly at the UFO, and I was going to ask you about that festival in Texas and in Edinburgh, Texas, where Nick was a guest speaker. There were a lot of great guest speakers there that day, and I was sad that I was leaving the next day and I couldn't hear your symposium. So I did want to ask you about that. But what are your thoughts? Like when you think about everything that you know, and I know you can't talk about everything you know because some of that was more than likely classified. But when you think of it in the general terms, I mean, what goes through your mind? I mean, as somebody who has been studying this for so long, what goes through your mind? What do you hope happens?
Well, I hope
and
that we find...
Then we can talk about
sure.
Edinburgh. Then we'll talk about Edinburgh.
I definitely hope we find out that we're not alone, because my goodness, wouldn't that be interesting, profound, important? We'd have to rethink almost every aspect of our lives. And let's face it, the world would be more interesting with aliens in it than not. And that's
so true. So true. There are some people, though, that I want to send to space. I just want... Just kidding. I would like to be one of them. And just because sometimes I don't want to hang out on this planet for too long. But it would be so profound and so incredible and so extraordinary. I would be thrilled to find out that, we weren't alone. And where did we come from? And are we connected? And what kind of space dust are we? I don't know. I'm very excited about this.
Yes, and just imagine getting in a 14 billion year old universe or whatever it is with maybe civilizations out there with 1 billion years head start on us. Just imagine getting our hands on the Encyclopedia Galactica or whatever and leafing through and finding out what knowledge other ancient, advanced civilizations might have accumulated over millions and millions of years. So, I mean, what an adventure. And if we're just about to take our first little step on the bottom rung of that ladder, my goodness, what an amazing time to be alive.
It really, really is. It's an extraordinary time to be alive. Let me get your thoughts on Elon Musk and, great adventures in our century that are trying to do things through the private sector to travel through space, not just government.
Well, it's interesting because it's that taking of the space program out of the hands of government and into the hands of the private sector, and particularly these brilliant, innovative, kind of left field thinkers like Elon Musk, that's going to be the future of this subject. And maybe, just maybe, I know he's quite skeptical about UFOs. He's made some very provocative remarks on Twitter.
Yes.
Well, hopefully, maybe wouldn't it be ironic if he gets on board one of his own spacecraft and he makes first contact? And why not? Why not? Isn't that exactly the sort of person that would be in the line for first contact, not a bureaucrat?
Oh, absolutely. We don't want bureaucrats being the first contact with any advanced civilization in space. We certainly do not want Nancy Pelosi out there. She will. It will be a mess. It will be a mess. But no, Elon Musk, I'm all about that. And you're absolutely right. I always think of, the greatest thinkers have always alluded to the fact that, space is so vast. We know so little about ourselves and about the universe around us. We're still in the process of discovery, of figuring ourselves out. And I have to imagine, just like great scientists and people have thought I'm not alone in this, that it's so vast. Civilizations have to be out there somewhere. I mean, there are planets much like Earth. We know that now, throughout our universe, throughout the multiverses of what they believe exists in physics. So we don't have the answers to everything. Isn't it important to keep our minds and our eyes open for all of these great wonders, and also to be on alert, because we don't know what this is. I mean, it could be a national security threat too.
Well, yes, and on that point, I think I've been criticized. I know Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo have been criticized too for sometimes talking up the threat narrative. But it is important to remember that within government, that's how we view this. We view this, and there's even an equation that defines threat in terms of capability times intent. Well, we've discussed the capability, and my goodness, it's pretty darned impressive. Intent, we really don't have any data on, and it's always better to assume there's a threat and then be relieved if one doesn't materialize than assume everything is going to be fine and get caught out. So that's why those of us with government backgrounds do talk about the threat. I mean, the T in ATIP stands for threat, and there's a reason for that.
And I think if we didn't do that, we would be fools, right? We would be fools. You have to be prepared for almost anything. Keep your mind open, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst so you don't get caught, right, in the middle of something that you won't be able to get out of or something that you won't be able to explain, which is why, that question looms. Why now? And I know I don't have much time left with you. I would love to keep bringing you back on, Nick, to talk about this subject. I think it is the most important subject of our lifetime. And I really believe that. I know there's so much else going on and there's so many concerns in our world, but I don't think there can be anything more important than coming to terms with the discovery that we may not be alone in this universe. And I, like you, believe that there's a reason that the government is doing this, that there's a reason for this process for disclosure. What do you think about you and I looking for folks that have reported this in the past, people that are highly credible, and bringing them on the show, and you and I together talking to them? I mean, giving them a platform like the pilots did, real credible people that have made these discover or have seen these in instances, seen UFOs or unidentified aerial vehicles and reported them, and maybe now feel like, wow, now I have some vindication?
I think that would be great. I think it would be long overdue, and it would bring this subject out of the shadows and put it in the spotlight, which is absolutely where it needs to be.
Well, how can people read about you, get your books, follow you, give all the information, all the details of where we can follow Nick Pope and what we can do to stay in touch with you, and any advice for people out there that may have been witnesses to this?
My website is nickpope.net, and that links to social media platforms where I'm active. But Twitter, which is where I put my fast-breaking stories, I'm at Nick Pope MOD. That stands for Ministry of Defense, though it's not an official account, I should say. I'm speaking in a private capacity, not for the British government, but at Nick Pope MOD on Twitter.
That's great. Everyone follow Nick Pope at Nick Pope MOD on Twitter. You will never be behind on any of the stories. He is up to date. He is an intellectual, and he's an author, and he really understands this and spent a good portion of his life researching this, almost all of his life, and working with the British government. Nick, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I always love having you on. And by the way, I told everyone I would get back to Edinburgh. So we were there together. I stopped by. I was covering the border, and I stopped by the UFO convention to see you. How did it go?
It went really well. Texas, of course, was one of the first to lift a lot of the restrictions and say, hey, let's party. And we partied. Everyone had fun. Everyone was safe. And it just shows that the level of public interest in this, people wanted to get together to discuss it with everything going on. So the Edinburgh UFO Festival was both fun and interesting. And we had a great time.
Oh yeah, and I was sad I couldn't stay the extra day with Nick. I wanted to buy him a beer, but I promise when I come and visit you and your wife, I will take you out to dinner and we will have that drink, Nick. It's going to be so much fun. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to that.
This is the reason, folks, that we can never be afraid to ask questions, right? That we have to stand up and not be embarrassed. Like, there is no reason why anyone in the military, just like Nick Pope said during this interview, or anyone in general, should feel afraid to come forward if they see something that is unexplainable, right? Don't let these crazy cancel culture or this weird, like, I don't even know what it is, ideology that's gone across our planet where people are afraid to just speak up. No one is going to call anyone crazy that's of sane mind and body, like these pilots, like these professionals who are coming forward. Do we really need the government to tell us that we are sane or that we have common sense? Do we really need that? No. I'm not ashamed. I want to know what's out there. I don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks. I live on a little planet in the middle of a vast universe, a solar system I don't really understand. And if people are seeing things, I want to know if that's Russian. I want to know if that's China. I want to know if that's an alien. I want to know what it is. Let's figure it out. Let's figure it out together. I don't need the government to tell me what to do, but a lot of people do. A lot of people do. I want you to think about Dr. Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is always flip-flopping on everything, but for some reason has been held in like high regard, who even messed up the whole entire response, I believe, in the 1980s to the AIDS epidemic, and has significantly messed up our response to COVID, at least socially, and how we handle it. You know, I mean, I was questioning Fauci from the beginning. 1 minute, don't wear masks. The next minute, wear masks. The next minute, wear double masks. The next minute, I mean, it was just like one change after another. Listen to this statement made by Fauci where he basically admits that wearing a mask was just theater after he was vaccinated. Listen to
obviously careful because, I mean, I'm a physician and a healthcare provider. I am now much more comfortable in people seeing me indoors without a mask. I mean, before the CDC made the recommendation change, I didn't want to look like I was giving mixed signals. But being a fully vaccinated person, the chances of my getting infected in an indoor setting is extremely low.
What? Can you believe this? Can you actually believe this? So this again, I want you to think about this. I knew that. I mean, we all have common sense. We go get vaccinated for a reason, so that we don't give it, we don't get it, and we protect ourselves. That's what a vaccine does. So common sense would dictate if you are vaccinated, you don't need to worry about giving it or really receiving it. Now, there might be very slim chances, but overall, that's what a vaccine does, and herd immunity becomes a part of that, and then we all become resistant to COVID, and then maybe we need boosters, whatever. But his failure, which I believe is almost on purpose, to confuse and frighten the American people is reprehensible. It's disgusting. I mean, people need to hold him accountable, but journalists just aren't doing it. They just aren't holding him accountable, hardly at all. It's like they let him do whatever they want. I want you to hear this clip. Again, this is a teacher, recent clip, it's all over the place, of this teacher reprimanding a student, basically, for not wearing his mask, even though he was vaccinated. Listen to this.
What if you're vaccinated, you little dick?
Okay.
I don't want to get sick and die.
Okay.
There's other people you can infect just because you're vaccinated. You know what? You're not a special person around here. You should hear about how everybody talks about you.
I
You're
know
a
how people
jerk.
talk to me. I don't care how people
You're
talk
a
about
jerk.
me. Okay.
And you need to have respect for other people in your life.
I do.
You're not a big man on campus. Quit walking around here like you have a stick up your butt.
This is the reason why. This is the reason why it is our duty of good journalists and media to hold the government accountable. So we don't have people running around losing their minds. And by the way, she should be absolutely fired for speaking that way to that student. It was unbelievable. Reminded me of like a Stephen King novel. I was ready for her to come out and start doing something crazy, right? I mean, would you want your child to be talked to like that? Even if the kid was being a jerk, which I didn't see him, he was sitting down. Even if he did say something, it is not her place to talk to him, degrade him the way that she did. But these people are emboldened. They're emboldened by people like Dr. Fauci, people like Nancy Pelosi, who basically have this fine she's giving. Remember that? She's just handing out fines to anybody who takes off their mask inside Capitol Hill, right on the Capitol. Giving you a $500 fine to any lawmaker. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you served in the military. Doesn't matter who you are. Wait a minute, Nancy. Aren't we supposed to believe in the science? Didn't the CDC just say we don't need to if we were vaccinated? What is this all about? It's all about theater. It's all about control. It's all about controlling you. And believe me, when you give up your power and you willingly give it up, it is very, very difficult to get it back, right? But I'm going to end on a high note. No, I'm not. I'm sorry. Today's just going to be one of those days where we're not going to be able to end on a high note. This is another weird moment of the week. Biden is driving around. Remember CNN said they try to make him look young and youthful whenever they could. Remember that was James O'Keefe. Project Veritas broke all those stories because they knew that Biden wouldn't win if they didn't help him. Well, this is another one of those trying to make Biden look young and youthful or whatever at the age of 78 with, I believe, some dementia going on. Biden's driving around an electric vehicle or something. And so all these reporters are being like, oh, President Biden, you're so amazing. Oh my gosh, what is it like? How fast did you go? What socks are you wearing today? Oh, I love your dog. He's so cute. Those questions. And then one reporter asks a very serious question. Listen to how President Biden, responds to this reporter when she asks about Israel and what is going on in our great ally in the great state of Israel. Listen to this.
President, can I ask you a quick question on Israel before you drive
No,
away?
you can't. Not unless you get in front of the car as I step on it. I'm only teasing.
First of all, did you hear the giggles? I want you to think about this. Had President Trump just joked around like that at all, do you know what would have happened? Oh, yeah, you know what would have happened. All those reporters would be calling the police, reporting a death threat. I'm so serious. They would be like calling, the Eastern District of New York, the Southern District of New York, Andrew Weissman, anybody they could find. You got to sue him. A direct threat, a death threat from the president. It would have been all over the newspapers. The gray lady would have had it, the New York Times, right on the cover. President Trump threatens to run over journalist, right? But it's like nothing. Joe Biden literally told that reporter to stand in front of the car and that he was going to hit the gas. You know what that means? And it didn't matter. I don't even think that was a funny joke. I don't even know why he was trying to joke about that. It says a lot about him and what he feels about the situation in Israel. Because remember, folks, Israel is really our only true ally in the Middle East. I'm telling you this. Intelligence officials know this. Those that aren't under the thumb of people like Brennan and others that are there right now, they know this. Prime Minister Netanyahu has every right, and the state of Israel has every right to protect itself from terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah who are being funded by Iran. But it tells a lot about President Biden when he refuses to answer a question about our great ally, our very close ally, in a very critical time, and he just then threatens to run over a reporter for asking about it. I want you to think about that because the Obama administration as well as the Biden administration are no friends of Israel. And the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States and around the globe is because of lawmakers here in the United States and in other parts of the world, along with this administration, that have basically targeted Israel and have basically made it okay to treat Israel as if it's some kind of apartheid state, which it is not. They never call out Hamas. They hardly ever call out Hezbollah. It's unbelievable. Anyways, I could go on and on and on. I am, once again, so thrilled that we had Nick Pope on. I'm bringing Luis Elizondo on. Again, I'm going to bring some other folks on, getting Chris Mellon on the show. I have a big surprise. I know I keep teasing it, but I will have someone really great on this show that you all know about coming up in the future. I'm just teasing it out there. So keep your eyes peeled. Download the podcast. That's the Sara Carter podcast. Go and download it now at Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to go to saracarter.com, sign up for our newsletter there. I will get emails to you every week, so you will be up on the latest stories. And again, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Thank you so much for being a part of my life. And remember, here at the Sara Carter Show, we are taking the story back.